What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're doing well. So sorry that I haven't been doing this show. No, I haven't done it in almost a week. I had a bunch of things I had to take care of. I was having some technical problems with uploading as well. My last show took way too long to upload. Sorry about that. Shouldn't have any problems going forward. So a lot of stuff that happened since I was last here. So let's get right into that. A lot of free agent signings. You might be like, that happened a few days ago. Last time I did this was on March 12th. It is now March 18th. By the way, I hope everyone had a nice and safe St. Patrick's Day. The Baltimore Ravens signed Derrick Henry, 2 years, $60 million. This is a really good sign for the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry is still a phenomenal player. You know, he didn't have, obviously, getting a little bit older. He's 30 years old. But last year, behind a very bad Titans offensive line, and, at 29 years of age, which for a running back is really the very end of their prime, ran for over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns, had over 4 yards a carry. Look, he has a lot of tread on the tires. He's now 30 years old, but he goes to Baltimore, an offense that obviously loves to run the ball. No Todd Monken. The corner's more of a pass-first coordinator. But the Ravens, that's the way they play. Obviously, their quarterback, Lamar Jackson, just won his second MVP of his career. He's obviously as mobile as it gets. So, and now with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, that is a dangerous running attack. If they can only get another piece on the outside, maybe target that in the draft. I think there's still some decent receivers out there on the trade market as well as in the free agent market. They can make something happen. This Ravens team should be dangerous next year. They should still have a very good defense. They lost a couple of pieces, but they should still have a lot of guys there. They should still have a very good defense, especially since John Harbaugh is still there. I know the rest of their defensive staff looks a little different. The coordinator, Mike McDonald, took a head coach job in Seattle. A bunch of assistants took coordinator jobs elsewhere. But they should still be really good. And that rushing attack, you gotta remember, their running backs get hurt every year. They like to use multiple backs. Obviously J.K. Dobbins, I believe, is still a free agent, or I forgot if someone picked him up or not. He's always hurt. Gus Edwards, who they no longer have. He is, he's a guy who last year was able to stay healthy, but in the past, injury problems. Justice Hill's the guy they like. He always gets hurt. Keaton Mitchell was playing really well last year. He got hurt last year. They find, I don't know, it's almost impressive how many backs they get hurt because they use all of them so much. But now you have a guy who, yes, he's 30 years old, not quite the same, but he's still a very good back. They use other backs. I believe they still have Justice Hill. I'm sure they'll find somebody else, whether it's late in the draft or they'll pick some random guy up off the waiver wire of the free agent market. And, they'll find the way to get him into the running back rotation, and he'll find a way to produce. So, Henry to the Ravens. It was a pretty big move. Pittsburgh Steelers signed Patrick Queen, 3 years, $41 million. A lot of Ravens fans are upset about that one. Obviously, he was the Ravens' top linebacker this past season. He was a first-round pick 4 years ago. Actually, his fifth-year option declines. Why? Before he played 4 in the 5 years. His first couple of years, the kid who was at LSU, I believe, was on the 19 LSU team that had won the national championship with Joe Burrow and Chase and all those guys. But last 2 years, he's coming to his own. He had the best year of his career this year, 133 tackles. He had a pick, 6 pass fences, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 3.5 sacks. He stuffed the stat sheet. He's a really good player. This fills a giant need for the Steelers, in my opinion. Inside linebacker has been a pretty big weakness for a while. Those really good Steelers defenses in the early 2010s had some really good linebackers. James Harrison, what was his name? Lamar Woodley. They had a lot of different guys. They haven't really had that in a while. The best they had, obviously, Ryan Shazier they had at one point. Of course, he had that very bad back end to force him to retire. You had, I think they had Devin Bush probably his first year or two before the injuries was looking like he's going to be a stud. And then the injuries kind of throughout his career, and kind of limited his ceiling. But now they got a true, top inside linebacker they haven't had in a few years. And something I think they've been missing. The Steelers also made a trade very, very recently to get Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears. They traded 2025 conditional 6th-round draft pick. If Fields plays 51% of the plays, that becomes a 4th. I don't really know what the Bears are doing. They are doing so well, signing DeAndre Swift and all these other guys. Finally building a good team. The rebuild looks like it's towards the end. And then, all of a sudden, Fields traded for a 2025 6th round pick. That's all you can get for Justin Fields? Are you kidding me? Mac Jones got a 6th round pick in this year's draft. You couldn't get a 6th this year for Justin Fields? Mac Jones got a 6th rounder in this year's draft to back up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Mac Jones. The Steelers got one for Kenny Pickett. They got a 3rd round pick for Kenny Pickett from Philadelphia. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I don't understand. So Pittsburgh has completely changed their quarterback room. Last year, of course, it was Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. They are all gone, and in comes Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Still isn't great, but Russ could be serviceable. And Fields, I mean, look, he obviously had a lot of talent coming out of Ohio State. Hasn't worked out so far, but, was not dealt the best hand of the cards in Chicago. Now he goes to a better situation in Pittsburgh. He's got a much better coach. He's in a better offense. He's got better weapons. He's got a little bit of an offensive line. The O-line is still a bit of a work in progress, but it's a little better. Defense is even better organization. Just an overall just better situation for Justin Fields. He's under contract this year. The Steelers have the option to pick up his 5th-year option. They'll have to do that for the next couple of months, so we'll see what they do with that. That's going to be an interesting one. It's one of those things, if they exercise it and he sucks, well, like, all right, or do you think you'll be able to move him? But, you'll want to decline it unless he breaks out. Like, oh, now he's afraid. Now you're playing the franchise tag game, and that's a dangerous, game to play. So, but Fields is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Kansas City Chiefs sent Irv Smith to a 1-year deal. Gives him some depth behind Travis Kelce, who, of course, battled some injuries this past year. And he's getting a little bit older. There was rumors he was thinking about retiring during the season. He shut those down pretty much right away. But, of course, his brother Jason just retired. And, he's got his podcast with his brother. I mean, nothing really left to prove. He's won 3 Super Bowl rings. He's arguably the greatest tight end ever. Obviously, he's dating Taylor Swift now. He really doesn't have anything else to prove. He can retire anytime he wants. I think he still has plenty left in the tank. I mean, he missed a couple of games. He missed a couple of games with injuries. He didn't play the last game. They were kind of like resting him / he was a little bit nicked up. And he still had just about 1,000 yards. For, a tight end at his age is still very, very impressive. And an offense that had some troubles during the season. But he's now a Chief. He said Hollywood Brown, 1 year, $11 million. This is a great signing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Hollywood's a very good player. He's not a great player, slight disappointment, I guess, being a first rounder by Baltimore. He's not a 1 like everyone thought he was going to be when he got drafted, but he's a solid 2. Very fast. He's a very good speed threat, deep threat. He's gotten, obviously, I didn't love how he kind of forced way out of Baltimore, so obviously Lamar Jackson is his cousin and they're close and everything, but he was just there's such a run-heavy offense. Didn't really get a lot of targets. I thought, he was the number 1 receiver in that offense. He played well. I don't really know why he wasn't happy there. But Arizona, having Kyler Murray, it's kind of still, like a work in progress, and then having this last year or two, having, the Colt McCoys and the Joshua Dobbs. Now I get to play with Patrick Mahomes. And, I'm excited to see what he can do with Pat Mahomes. I mean, you saw Juju Smith-Schuster from Mahomes, like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Then he goes to New England, you're like, can this guy run a route? Like, what? Even Kadarius Toney at times, looked like an actual NFL receiver. with Pat Mahomes. You know, at first with the Giants, we were like, first of all, what happened to the 8 different injuries you have with the Giants? He comes from the Chiefs, had like 60 yards his first game. Obviously, this year he was horrible, but even he's had some moments. But yeah, now the Chiefs get a slot receiver in Hollywood Brown. This allows them to probably go offensive line in the draft because left tackle is a hole because Donovan Smith is a free agent. And the right tackle, Juwan Taylor, takes 86 penalties a game. So, and they're paying a lot of money, so they can't get rid of him. So, tackle's a big concern for the Chiefs. Now, I think that's where they'll go in the draft, either that or wide receiver. Unless they trade Larry Sneed to their corner. But I'm hearing I think he might be traded. I think he wants an extension, like right when he's traded, and that's holding things out. I think teams are a little bit hesitant to throw him a bag as soon as they trade for him. That's what's holding it up. But I do think that's the plan to trade. I just don't know if they have the money. I mean, they paid Chris Jones all that money. You know, they're already paying Mahomes. They did restructure his deal so they can create some cap space, as they do pretty much every year. After you're paying Kelsey and all these other guys that you're paying. Obviously, you just signed Hollywood Brown. I mean, Sneed's making almost $20 million on the tag, so. Super do. Giants signed Drew Lock on a one-year deal. Okay, cool. He's going to compete with Daniel Jones. The Giants completely shot themselves in the foot with that Daniel Jones contract. They were finally doing something right. They get what appeared to be the right coach, what we thought was the right GM. They make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. Daniel Jones looks kind of serviceable. All right, maybe we can salvage this with him. But, and then they throw this huge deal at him. But I think including myself, every other human being was like, what are you doing? The man threw 15 touchdowns. That was the best year of his career in what? In 4 years. And you give him $160 million. Excuse me? That should be a crime. And then look what happened this year. It was horrible. Gets hurt. Now you're stuck with him. So apparently Drew Lock is going to compete with Jones for the starting job. Something I heard. No, I'm trying to think who's better. That's not the greatest quarterback room in the world with those two and Tommy DeVito. I guess Jones is a little bit better. I don't know. I don't even know if Jones will be ready for week 1. He tore his ACL like week 8 on that god-awful turf at MetLife Stadium. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Apparently, they might draft J.J. McCarthy at 6. If they do, I might just laugh at how silly, stupid, and comical that is. They don't take one of these star receivers or O-linemen and take freaking J.J. McCarthy at 6. Joe Schoen should be just banished from the tri-state area. Just the whole area. Just get him out. But Giants bring in Drew Lock. Bears sign Gerald Everett, 2 years, $12 million. Give him some depth behind Holcomb at tight end. Let's make a big trade. They trade Keenan Allen for a 4th-round draft pick. This is an incredible move for the Chicago Bears. Keenan Allen, a little bit injury-prone, a little bit older, but still a great receiver. He's a really good player, still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You missed some time with injuries this year, but when healthy, he's arguably a top 10 receiver in the game. He's really good. You pair him with DJ Moore. It's one of the best receiver duos in the league. Now, look, the Bears, they're going to draft Kalen. First overall is going to be a disaster, I'm telling you right now. But if they can get themselves a quarterback, this team is really good. Great move. A 4th rounder for Keenan Allen is crazy. So the Washington Commanders were very busy in free agency. So they signed Durant Armstrong, 3 years, $30 million, $22 million guaranteed. There's been a lot of signings. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. Durant Armstrong, he had a good year for the Cowboys. He had 7.5 sacks this past season for the Dallas Cowboys. You know, with the amount of snaps played, he had a very good year. You know, I'm not sure now stepping up into a big-time role how he'll do. Only time will tell. They signed Frankie Louvu, 3 years, $31 million, $19 million guaranteed. I do like that deal a lot. Frankie Louvu came up with the Jets as like a deaf guy. Was pretty good. He goes to Carolina, and he's really broken out. The last year has been really good. This past year, 125 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 5 pass defenses, and 2 forced fumbles. He's a really good player, very versatile linebacker who can play pretty much all over the field. Drop back in coverage. He can, play around the line of scrimmage. He's a very good player. I like the Commanders bringing him in. That defense needs a little help. I can get it. They can get. They signed Tyler Byad's 3 years, $30 million, $17.5 million guaranteed. It's a pretty good deal. He had a pretty good year for Dallas last year. He's a solid center. I like him. He's pretty good. Can't get much worse whatever that O-line was in Washington this past year. Nick Allegretti got 3 years, $60 million, $9 million guaranteed. This I think was a little bit much when it comes to money. I mean, he's making almost $5.5 million a year. He's really a depth lineman, so I'm not really sure why they gave him $60 million. They give Brendan McManus a year for $3.6 million. He's a pretty good kicker. Trying to improve their kicking game, but didn't have a good year last year. 30-37 from field goals and middle of the extra point, but missed 7 field goals. So he kind of like okay last year in Jacksonville. So he's not the best, but not a lot of money. They also signed out Bobby Wagner a year for $8.5 million, $6 million guaranteed. That's a great move for the Washington Commanders. He's a really good player. Might be a Hall of Fame player. He's been in the league now for, I think Seattle drafted him the same year they drafted Russell Wilson. So he's been there in the league for a good 11, 12 years. Obviously last year returned to Seattle for a year with the Rams. Had a really good year. 183 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 3 pass defenses, and the fumble recovery. A little older, but still a very good linebacker. Commanders bring in him. Also, of his Rams bring in Darius Williams on a 3-year deal of $22.5 million. Very good signing. He started his career with the Los Angeles Rams. Built a pretty good reputation as a solid corner. And then he was in Jacksonville. Jacksonville let him go. Now he's back with the Rams last year. 4 picks, 19 pass defenses, 3 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. He's a very good cover corner. Rams add him. And it's good because their defense needs as old help they can get because Aaron Donald has officially retired from the NFL. Completely shocking news. One of the all-time greats was I think in 10 seasons was a 10-time Pro Bowl, 9-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, of course. Absolute stud. One of the greatest defensive tackles of all time. One of the greatest defensive players of all time. He very surprisingly announced his retirement. Now he's been mulligated for a couple of years. When they were in the Super Bowl, that huge report came out like, oh, he might be retiring. It seems like every offseason there was rumors it was going to happen. But didn't really hear of it this year, but out of nowhere, a few days ago, it came out that he's retiring. So salute to one of the all-time great players in the history of defense in the NFL. And the Rams signed also Jimmy Garoppolo for a year. He was cut by the Raiders to save some cap space, and he will back out Matthew Stafford this year in Los Angeles. Philadelphia Eagles made a few moves. They signed Devontae Parker. It's a one-year deal. They're paying him $4.6 million, but they're only paying $1.2 million because New England's covering the rest. It's kind of like a weird deal. But they bring him in. I don't think he's that good. Maybe a better quarterback. He'll be a serviceable 3, but I don't think he's that good. They extend their kicker, Jay Gillett, 4 years, $24 million. Ties him with Justin Tucker for the highest paid kicker in the NFL right now. He had a great year last year, 30 or 32 from field goal range, only missed 1 extra point in 46 tries. So he is a very good kicker. He's locked up in Philly. Eagles signed Devin White a year for $7.5 million. That's not a bad signing. He was a high pay, was a 5th pick in the draft about 4 or 5 years ago for Tampa. He's had some really good years there, but last year was he requested a trade because he didn't get a long-term deal, and there was a whole saga with that. He wasn't happy. He was holding out briefly. Didn't have his best year. Missed a couple of games. Played 14 games. Had 83 tackles, 6 pass defense, 2.5 sacks. So he's like a couple of years ago, people were saying this guy's one of the best linebackers in the league. I don't think that is true, but he's a solid linebacker. Eagles, that's been a major hole in the Eagle defense for a couple of years, especially this year. And so I do like them, addressing that hole with a pretty good player. And also, they made them move for Pickett. They get him and 2 7 snaps next year for a 3rd-round pick. Not really sure we're giving up 3rd round for Kenny Pickett. He's absolutely abysmal, but I guess they'll back up Jalen Hurts, I guess. If you're trying to light a fire under Hurts' ass, because he didn't have a great year, Kenny Pickett's not the guy to do it. If I'm Hurts, I'm just like, okay, cool, yeah, fine. I mean, the guy's got 13 touchdowns in 2 years. I'm not moved. I don't know what you want me to do with that. Yeah, the Las Vegas Raiders, like I said, they cut Jimmy G. It saves him $11.3 million in cap space. Also got Hunter Renfrow, saving him $13.7 million. Renfrow 2 years ago had a great year, breakout year. Last 2 years hasn't been as efficient. Quarterback play hasn't been great. Derek Carr, his last year in Vegas wasn't very good. And this year had, with Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G. I think he's a guy, if he goes somewhere with a good quarterback, he can be a solid 2. Great route runner, good slot guy. But he deserved to go somewhere with a better situation. Raiders save $13.7 million in cap space for letting him go. Carolina actually did something right. Surprise, surprise. They make a move for Deontay Johnson. They get him in a 7th round pick, and they send Dante Jackson in a 6th back to Pittsburgh. Johnson, look, he doesn't have the greatest hands in the world. He's got some drop issues, and he had a little bit of an attitude problem this year. The effort wasn't always there, which obviously is a major concern in pro sports if that isn't there, but if his head screws on straight, he's a decent number 2 receiver. I've always thought he was a little bit underrated and a bit overhated, and a lot of people think he's just straight garbage, but I don't think he's just straight trash. I think he's pretty good. In 13 games, he had 51 catches for 717, 5 touchdowns. So he had a good year last year, despite the, also his quarterback was Kenny Pickett. He had Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. And he had 700 plus yards in 13 games. He missed 4 games, still 700 yards. Doesn't exactly have a better quarterback situation. He somehow got worse, arguably, with Bryce Young. Whatever the hell's going on in Carolina, but this is a good move for the Carolina Panthers. He's probably their best receiver right now, which is not really ideal. He's not a 1, he's a 2. It's pretty clear, but giving up a corner, Dante Jackson, who is not very good. He's a liability in coverage. Last year, 59 tackles, 5 pass defenders. His PFF grade was only 64.5, which isn't great for corners, for coverage grids. So he's only like the 43rd greatest graded corner in coverage, so he's not a great cover corner. He's a guy who flashed some potential early on in his career a few years ago, but, hasn't been great recently. Was horrible last year. But he's a deaf guy, to be honest. But Miami Dolphins, they signed Jordan Poyer on a 1-year deal. Poyer's getting a little bit older. But that's a pretty good move for the Miami Dolphins. He missed some time last year with the Bills. He's getting older, but he's still a solid safety. Miami brings him in. And they also signed Kendall Fuller, 2 years, $16.5 million. He's a very good player. I like him a lot for Miami. 79 tackles, 2 picks, non-pass defenses, 2 fumble recoveries this past year. Had a coverage grade of over 82. He's a very good cover corner. Can play inside. Can play in the slot. Very versatile. Very good player. They obviously cut Xavier Howard and needed their number 2 corner. Now they get it. And Kendall Fuller, Jalen Ramsey getting older. Really good move for the Miami Dolphins. Also in the Cardinals, they signed DJ Dallas, 3-year deal of $8.2 million, over up to $10.5 million. That's just death behind James Conner. And then Kyler Murray gets some more guaranteed money. He'll make $35.3 million in guaranteed this year, and almost $30 million in guaranteed money next year. A little small thing. Houston Texans signed Danielle Hunter, 2 years for $49 million. This is a great signing for the Houston Texans. Danielle Hunter's a really good player. This past year, he had 16.5 sacks, 83 tackles, and 4 forced fumbles. He is an absolute menace. Very underrated because he plays on the mediocre Vikings. Great player, being a consistently top edge rusher for a long time. Had a great year this past year. A little older, but he's 30. But only get a 2-year deal. I think the $24.5 million or 24 plus, whatever that is fair. But really good signing for the Texans that replaces Jonathan Grenard, who they lost to the Vikings in free agency. Also trade for Joe Mixon, give just a 7th round pick. They give him a 3-year, $27 million extension with 13 guaranteed. That's a great move for the Houston Texans. A 7th round pick for a running back with over 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns last year. Getting a little older for a back. He's about 29 years old, 28, 29. They had his fair share of off-the-field issues, but on the field, he is still probably a top 10 back in football. Really good player. Had a great year last year. And they get him for a 7th round pick, and you extend him. Great move for the Houston Texans, too. That fills really the lone hole they had when it comes to the skill positions on offense. Texans made a weird draft picks trade with the Vikings. So the Texans trade their 1st round draft pick, the 23rd overall pick, and pick number 232 to the Vikings. In return, they get pick 42 in the 2nd round this year. They get 188, which is like the 5th round, and they get a 2nd rounder next year. So the Texans trade their first this year and a late round pick for a second this year, a second next year, and like a fifth this year. So don't really understand why. So the Vikings trade 2 2s and the 5 for a 1. Don't know why the Texans did that at all. But Vikings pick up another first round pick and lose their 2s for the next 2 years. What it's worth. New York Jets made some moves, so they trade a 6th round pick for a Morgan Moses. Also think they got a 4th round pick in the deal. I like this move a lot for the Jets. You know, obviously they're bringing in another Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman. Moses had a good year last year with the Baltimore Ravens. Was their starting right tackle. He was actually on the Jets a couple of years ago. They've been with the Ravens for a couple of years now. He's a solid right tackle. He had a good year last year. And they also signed Tyron Smith. 1 year, $20 million. Tyron had a great year last year. Problem is, he's a little older. He's been a little injury prone these last 2 years. He is, when healthy, he's still an all-pro left tackle. But now he's a Jet. Look, I think the moves they've made to address the O-line have actually been pretty good. And you signed John Simpson for 2 years. He's a solid left guard. You bring in Tyron Smith, who obviously is has some injury concern, but if healthy, is still an all-pro. It's for a year. Now you trade a late round pick for Morgan Moses, who you're familiar with, because he used to play for you. I believe Saul was there when he was there, so he should know some of the coaches. And he had a pretty good year last year, so now you can keep Vera Tucker on the inside. And now you can really go a lot of different ways with that 10th pick. You can take maybe you can go tackle to maybe be the guy who takes over for Tyron Smith next year. He's also injury prone. Maybe your receiver, which is I think is still definitely a need for them. So we will see what they do. But I do like what they've done with the offensive line. They've actually done a pretty good job. Do I have confidence they're going to be good next year? No, it's the Jets, but we'll see what happens. And that's to extend to CJ Mosley on a 2-year deal worth I think $17 million. Yeah, $17.2 million. CJ Mosley. So, Jets extend him. Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Jordan Whitehead, 2 years, $9 million. So he was with the Jets the last couple of years, but started his career in Tampa. He is now, once again, a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Was pretty good the last couple of years for the Jets. 97 tackles, 4 picks, non-pass offenses in this season. Granted, he had 3 picks in 1 game, week 1, so he only had 1 the rest of the way, but he had a good year this year. Bucks add to a secondary, which needs a lot of help. They were awful this past year. The Chargers cut Mike Williams, so obviously you lose both your top receivers. That's why it was such a big deal that they traded Keenan Allen, but saving $20 million in cap space. But he definitely missed practically the whole year this past year, but he'll definitely sign somewhere. He's got a lot of suitors. I know that the Jets looking at, I would love to sign him, give him a lucrative 1-year deal. He's a little older now, 29, 30 years old, but very injury prone, but when healthy, is a great player. And they restructured Khalil Mack's deal and Joy Bo's deal, so they keep those 2 guys. Chargers, they were in the cap crunch. They had 4 huge contracts with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joy Bosa, and Khalil Mack. And also you have Herbert's contract, obviously. Yeah, they were probably going to have to move one of them. And there were a couple of them were going to take pay cuts. I think Bosa and Mack did, but they let go of Mike Williams. I think, no, because they wanted Keenan Allen to take a pay cut. He said no. So they traded for a 4th round pick. I'm just taking a pay cut, I'm not really sure. I didn't think it was that big of a deal for him to take a pay cut. Depends on how much it was. I think it was pretty hefty, so I guess he was a little upset about that. But 4th round pick for Keenan Allen, you got to at least get a 2nd round pick for him. That's a terrible return for the Chargers. But the Titans signed Mason Rudolph a year for $3.6 million, so he'll back up Will Levis this season. And they signed Calvin Ridley, 4 years, $92 million. I think it's a bit of an overpay, giving him $23 million a year, but 76 catches for 1,016 yards, 8 scores last year. He's a very good player. Didn't have as good of a year we thought he was going to have, because the last time we saw him healthy, he was a guy who was giving you 1,400 yards a season. He didn't do that, but he still had a good year for Jacksonville last year. I think it was weird. It looked like he wanted to go back there, but Jacksonville, I'm not sure how mutual the interest that was, much if they want to pay him. I know New England was looking hard at him. I thought he was going to New England, and all of a sudden, he goes to Tennessee. So he is a Titan. The Titans found their wide receiver 1. Him and DeAndre Hopkins, not a bad duo. If Hopkins doesn't fall off anytime soon. Indianapolis coach signed Joe Flacco to a one-year deal of $8.7 million. He was obviously comeback player of the year this past year. 13 touchdowns and 8 picks, over 1,600 yards and 5 starts this year. Obviously, was a great story. And he will back up Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis this year with Gardner Minshew, now Las Vegas Raider. The Lions bring in DJ Reader, 2 years, $27.2 million. Love this signing for the Detroit Lions. His numbers don't jump up the page from this past year, DJ Reader, but he's one of those guys that he does a lot of things that don't really show up in the stat sheet. Yeah, like 34 tackles, a sack, a pass defense, and a fumble recovery. You don't really show up that much, but incredible run stuff up the middle. Very good player. He goes to Detroit. Great pickup. And the Lions extend head coach Dan Campbell or GM Brett Holmes for 2027. Holmes done a great job. Campbell, I like him a lot. Needs to learn, when to be a little less aggressive on fourth down, but has done a good job there. And speaking of the Cleveland Browns, they signed Mike Vrabel as like a coaching and personnel consultant. Look, it's kind of a slap in the face to Mike Vrabel, who should definitely be a head coach, but he's like, all right, at least I'll be in the NFL this year. I can go and get a head coach job next year. Jacksonville Jaguars signed Eric Armstead, 3 years, $51 million. Now, he battled some injuries this year. He was a guy who a couple of years ago had a big year. 49ers has been solid for the most part, but the last 2 years missed a lot of games. Only played 12 games here. Did have 5 sacks. If healthy, I think he's a very good defensive tackle, and that's gives a Jacksonville defense that struggled last year a big boost. Buffalo Bills signed Curtis Samuel, 3 years, $24 million, worth up to 30 with incentives, $15 million guaranteed. And he had a pretty good year last year in Washington, 62 catches for 613 yards and 4 scores. He's a solid second or third receiver, and Buffalo brings in. That's something they didn't need. I think he's probably a smidge better than Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is maybe got more of a big play threat, but Samuel's probably a more well-rounded player. And they got it for cheaper than what Gabe Davis got from Jacksonville. Packers re-signed A.J. Dillon. He's last year 613 rush yards, 2 scores, only 3.4 yards per carry. He's a sour like between the tackles back. He'll be the number 2 back in that committee with Josh Jacobs. Dallas Cowboys cut a couple of guys. Cut Michael Gallup, saving him $9.5 million. When Gallup first came up, I thought he was going to be really good. Hasn't quite turned out that way. 34 catches for 418 and 2 touchdowns this past year, but I think he's a solid third receiver. They also cut Leighton Vander for to save $9.5 million. He's a really good player. Obviously, was always hurt. Missed most of the season last year. He's had so many back and neck problems. I don't really know how much longer he's going to be able to play. To be honest, it's a shame. But what are the Dallas Cowboys doing? All in? Okay. All in. They don't know what they're doing in free agency. It's been comical. Absolutely comical. And then you had KJ Osborne. Selling with the Patriots. Selling with their receiver. Patriots, they've been a little lackluster as well. They had a lot of money. Haven't really done much. But KJ Osborne is back in... He's not back in the back. He is now a New England Patriot. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. I know I haven't done the Android trade deadline preview yet. I'm gonna get to that tomorrow. My obviously the March Madness bracket just came out. I'm probably going to record the firing squad at some point this week. It might even be in an hour or two, to be honest. From when I'm filming this, at the time I'm filming this, it is Monday. It's 12:20 in the afternoon. We're gonna be talking bracket. I know the first game's Thursday. I was doing my bracket. It's probably going to be Wednesday. I would like to do it tomorrow, but I want to talk about what the NFL trade deadline, which is over, which at this point is over a week ago. And also, there's some stuff happening in baseball that around the corner. I gotta do a preview. I gotta do a preview for that. I pushed it off a little more than I thought. Open days in about a week and a half, but that could happen later this week, if not next week. So keep your eyes peeled for those things. That's all we got for you guys today. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.